Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I hope you all are doing well. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make this fall cardigan. I'm wearing sweats, so don't judge me, but I'm going to show you guys how to make this fall cardigan. I made this back in September for my Colorado trip and I posted it on my TikTok and I had a ton of people. I'm still getting comments about where's the tutorial for this cardigan on that TikTok, so here it is. A little late. 2 months late, but here it is. And also, how cute is my little gingerbread mug? I know it's not even Thanksgiving. I know it's still fall. We're still in the middle of November, but I'm full-blown Christmas over here, okay? I did make 2 more of these cardigans. This is the one that you're going to be seeing on the tutorial, but I did make one in a different fiber. For this cardigan, I recommend using 100% acrylic yarn. I believe this one is 99% acrylic and like 1% polyester, I think, but mostly acrylic. This one is a polyester blend with nylon, and I found that the measurements on this is just a little off. It's a bit tighter, feels a bit tighter around like my armpit, armhole area, so it doesn't have as much stretch to it. So I recommend 100% acrylic. This is the yarn that I use. It's the Loops and Threads facet yarn, and it's at Michael's. This is also a Loops and Threads yarn, but I can't remember the exact line of it. I'll have it in the down bar below for you guys, along with all the colorway names. That way you can go and purchase them. I know this one was super popular on TikTok. A lot of people really like. This is my favorite colorway. I think out of all the cardigans that I made, this one is my favorite one and my most worn one. I just think the colorway is so pretty and fall-like. A little bit about this cardigan before we get started. This is made on the Sentro knitting machine, the 48 needle Sentro knitting machine. So this is not crocheted. So you will need a Sentro knitting machine if you don't have one, or if you're looking to get one, or maybe you know somebody who wants to get one. I have one linked in the down bar below for you guys, but know that it is an affiliate link, so if you do click on it, I do get a small commission at no extra cost to you, but thank you so much if you do use it. It's so greatly appreciated. And this is a tutorial for somebody who knows how to work a Sentro knitting machine, that has experience with one. If you are brand new to one, if you don't know how to use it, I'm going to link some videos from other fellow YouTubers on here that I've learned how to use and navigate the Sentro knitting machine, because I really thought it was just kind of like a plug and play. You put your yarn on, you get cranking away, but it's not that simple. There's a little bit of a learning curve to it. So I'm going to add some videos that I found super helpful when I was learning how to use a Sentro knitting machine that you guys can also refer to as well. Like I said, there's a little bit of a learning curve with it, and there's certain yarns that the knitting machine prefers than others, and acrylic is one of them. For reference, I'm 5'4" and I wear typically a size small, extra small when it comes to clothes. It's gonna measure your arm panel. So for me, I did 8 inches wide and 19 inches long. Usually on the Sentro knitting machine, 3 to 4 pegs equal 1 inch. So I took the 4 peg measurement and times that by my width measurement, which was 8. So 8 times 4 gives us 32, and that's how I started, with 32 pegs to cast on. And then from there, I took my tape measure and I measured from the peg to the bottom of my panel until I got 19 inches. I'm gonna have this all in the down bar below for you guys as far as like a written description. It's just pretty simple math. You just take your width, times it by 4, and that should give you how many pegs you need to cast on. Typically not a gauge swatch girly. I kind of just go for it, but with this I would recommend doing it because I did a gauge swatch. So just make a little swatch of the width, especially. The length is easier to measure, but the width, I would say make a little swatch, make sure it fits the measurements of everything correctly, and then you can go ahead and start just cranking your length on there. I feel like I'm not very good at explaining things, which is why I get a little bit nervous about posting tutorials, because I feel like I talk out my ass. And I did steam block this, so it adds a little bit of length and width to the panel. So if you're not going to steam block, that's fine. As long as you're using 100% acrylic yarn, you don't have to steam block it. I didn't steam block this one. I will, but I didn't steam block it. I'll try it on for you guys just so you can see. This one is steam blocked, and you'll notice that when you take your panels off of the Sentro knitting machine, see it still kind of like curls in a little bit. Adding that border of single crochet should help, but steam blocking definitely helps with the curl of the panel. So I'm going to show you this one because I didn't steam block it, just to show you what I mean. But something I forgot to mention in this tutorial is that you will need these hook and eye like bra enclosures. These are look like bra little enclosures. That way you can close your cardigan. If you want, you can just use like your yarn, just make like 2 strings to close it up like a little bow. So yeah, you can see how much this one like curls in because I haven't steam blocked it. So like I said, I recommend steam blocking your garment afterwards, but completely unnecessary if you don't have a steamer. I'll have everything in the down bar below for you guys, the materials, the other videos for the Sentro knitting machine if you're a beginner, and like the measurement formula that I use to get this cardigan. But yeah, I think that's it. If you have any questions, you can leave me a comment, and you can always reach out to me on Instagram and TikTok. I'll leave those in the description box for you as well, and I think that's it. Let's get into it. Materials you'll need for this project is a 48 pin knitting machine. I got mine off of Amazon. I'll have it linked below. You'll also need scissors, a 5mm crochet hook, darning needles to weave in ends, a tape measure, and you'll need a medium weight acrylic yarn. This is the Loops and Threads Facet yarn by Michaels. Technically this is a 99% acrylic, 1% polyester, but that's fine. I did work up one sleeve off camera to show you guys what it looks like, and I love the colors of this. So now we're going to work up the other sleeve. Make sure your Sentro knitting machine is set to panel, not tube, and we're going to take our waste yarn and we're going to cast this on so that we have a nice crisp edge. So when you're working in a panel setting, the first 2 pegs always fall off when you start going. So go ahead and start your count at peg number 3 and cast on 32 pegs. And I will have a more in-depth tutorial about Sentro knitting machines, just tips and tricks that I found really helpful from other YouTubers on here, linked in the down bar below for you guys. So cast on 45 pegs and then go ahead and thread it through the guide. And now we're going to work a couple rows of our waste yarn. Once you've worked up a couple rows of waste yarn, go ahead and cut it, drop the tail in the center, and grab your main working yarn. Make sure to pull out a tail long enough that we can crochet with to secure the edges after we're done with all our panels. And then we're going to thread our yarn through the guide and just start cranking the wheel. And now we're going to crank this new main yarn for 112 rows, and I'll meet you guys back to finish up with the waste yarn. Now that we've worked up 112 rows for our sleeves, we're going to go ahead and leave a really long tail to crochet with to secure our edge later on. Cut that yarn, and then now just simply add the waste yarn back in and go ahead and work up a couple rows of this waste yarn. Once you're done, you can go ahead and cut the waste yarn, drop the tail into the center. And now the satisfying part, go ahead and crank the wheel one more time to see your work come off of the knitting machine. It should all just fall right off, and it's just so pleasing to watch. So you've just completed one sleeve, go ahead and repeat that process to do a second sleeve, and this is what it should be looking like afterwards. And now we get to work on the back panel. The back panel is going to be the same process. Take your waste yarn, and not counting the first 2 from peg number 3, we're counting out 45 pegs to cast on. Crank a couple rows of your waste yarn. Once you have a couple rows, cut off the yarn, drop it in the center, take your main working yarn and grab a tail long enough to work with afterwards. Thread it through the guide, and now we're going to work 110 rows. Once you have 112 rows for the back panel, go ahead and leave a tail long enough to work with later. Cut it, drop it in the center, add your waste yarn, and crank a couple rows of waste yarn. Once that's done, cut the yarn, drop it in the middle, work the row one more time so that it all just falls off of your knitting machine very easily, and then you have your back panel completed. This is what it should be looking like. Go ahead and set the worked panels that you have to the side, and now we're going to work on the front panel. Alright, bear with me with these instructions on the front panel. Hopefully the visual also helps. We're going to be working this front panel starting from the top of the shoulder and working our way down towards the body and the neckline. So I'm going to go ahead and cast on 16 pegs to begin. Work a couple rows of your waste yarn and then add your main yarn and work 16 rows of your main yarn. That's going to form the shoulder portion of the cardigan. Now we'll start working on the shaping of the neckline, and to do that we're going to increase on one side only. To increase on the Sentro, we're just going to be adding one more peg into our row. So we're going to be increasing every other row. Once you get to your last stitch here, you're going to slowly crank it to the empty peg next to it. You see this notch next to the empty peg? You want to make sure that the yarn catches underneath that, and that ensures that there are no drop stitches. So go ahead and crank it the other way, and there you go. You just increased on the Sentro. Do that for every other row. So coming back towards this way, we're going to add another peg to our row. So again, increasing every other row. So anytime you come back this way, make sure that you add a peg until you have a total of 23 pegs. So you'll go from 16 to 23 pegs total. That's about 14 rows of increases. Once I've reached my full width of 23 pegs, I'll keep knitting straight for 80 more rows, giving me a total of 110 rows, which should match the number of rows in our back panel. And this is the right front panel that we're working, so all of your increases should be on the left side of the machine, so your neckline curves in the right direction. And if you wanted to start with 23 pegs and then decrease to 16 pegs, go ahead, you can do that. I find that it's easier to just increase on the Sentro knitting machine than decrease, so that's why we're working from the top to the bottom. Once you have your 110 rows, it's the same process. Leave a tail long enough to crochet with later to secure the edges, cut the yarn, put your waste yarn on, and then crank a couple rows of waste yarn, cut that, crank it one more time so that it gets off of the knitting machine, and then you're done with your right side front panel. So this is what it should be looking like. It should have a little bit of a curve to it, a little neckline shaping. So now we can work on the left side. So now we're making the left front panel, which is basically the mirror of the right side, but because of how the Sentro knitting machine works in a panel mode, we'll need to set it up a little bit differently. So remember that in the panel setting, the first two pegs on the left of the white peg, where the start is, does not catch the yarn. They always drop. So when we're counting our pegs, we actually need to start from the third peg, the number 3 peg. For this side, I'm going to count out a total of 23 pegs, leaving 7 pegs free on the right side, because the right side is where we're going to be doing our increases. Your last peg should be on the number 3 peg, not 1, not 2, on the number 3, because number 1 and 2 always get dropped when you're working in a panel setting. So you want to account for this space right here. It's gonna feel really funny, it's gonna be a little weird to work with, so be patient with yourself, but go ahead and cast on going to the right side. Normally we would cast on moving in the direction to the left. We're gonna cast on going to the direction to the right. Go ahead and cast on your 16 pegs. Work a couple rows of that waste yarn. Once you're done, add your main yarn and work a total of 16 rows on those 16 pegs. So we're going to work our increases on the right hand side of the machine, so that's where we're going to put our increases. So every other row we're going to be increasing until we reach a total of our 23 pegs. So again, to increase the empty peg next to the last peg of the row, you're going to go ahead and crank it to that one. Make sure you are catching the yarn underneath the notch next to the empty peg to make sure that there are no dropped stitches. I'm going to leave other videos from other YouTubers of tips, tricks, how to increase on the Sentro knitting machine, just so you have more resources to look over. There's definitely a learning curve when it comes to the Sentro knitting machine. It took me a while to get the hang of it, but once you get it, it's a cakewalk and you can make so much with it. So don't worry, be patient with yourself, you got this. Once you have all the increases done, go ahead and work your 23 pegs for a total of 110 rows, again to match the other side of the panel and your back panel. And then same process, leave a tail long enough to work with later on, cast on your waste yarn, crank a couple rows of that, cut that off, and then you can go ahead and take your work off of the machine by cranking it one more time. And now you've worked both panels. The hard part is done. That's the hardest part, is the front panels. So to keep everything secure and prevent it from unraveling, we're going to finish it off with a crochet edge using single crochets. So the yarn that is closest to the waist yarn, these here are live stitches, so we need to secure those so it doesn't undo. So take your hook and insert it at the very edge. Take that long tail, that will be our working yarn, pull up a loop and chain 1, and then in that same loop we're going to do a single crochet. And now we're going to single crochet in each one of those loops that is hugging the waist yarn. So add 1 single crochet into each loop along the waist yarn. I love using this waist yarn method because it leaves such a nice crisp edge, so you don't really have to worry about your work unraveling. You don't have to go through the tedious process of doing it on the machine. It's just so much easier to do it this way, in my opinion. When you get to the other side, make sure you are pulling it a little bit apart because it likes to curve in a bit. Get that very last loop on the edge. I'm not sure if that last loop will cause any unraveling, but just to play it safe, go ahead and insert your hook and add a single crochet there as well. Would hate for something to happen where it unravels, so I always just make sure I get that very, very last loop. Chain 1, pull through, and you're done. You can fasten off. You're going to go ahead and repeat that process on every side of every panel, so every panel is nice and secure. Okay, and then now the fun part is you can take off the waist yarn. It's so satisfying to see that nice crisp edge. I love it. It's my favorite, one of my favorite parts of this process, other than the casting off of the machine. Now you can unveil that beautiful crisp edge, no unraveling, everything is secure. So make sure to do that to every side of every panel, and then we can put it all together now. For sewing, I don't really have a method to my madness. I just start with the top shoulder part, working up the sides, and then I close the sleeves. Just make sure when you're sewing, your work is inside out, and I did use the mattress stitch to sew. Once we're all done putting our pieces together, we're going to add rows of single crochets around the edges. So I did a single crochet around the cuffs. When working the single crochet row, make sure that your work is right side facing, so not inside out. Attach your yarn at the top back, working your way towards the neckline, down to the bottom, back up towards the neckline on the other side of the panel, and then back to where you started. I just place single crochets where they see fit. Just make sure that they're pretty evenly spaced out. There's really no wrong way to do this. I should have showed it on camera, but once I got to the bottom edge of the front panel, I did add 3 single crochets into 1 stitch to kind of give it more of a like corner to it. I didn't show it, I wish I did, but if you don't remember to do it, that's fine. On one of the other cardigans I made, I didn't remember to do it, and it still turned out okay. So it doesn't really make a difference. Just go ahead and evenly space out your single crochets around the edge of your work just to clean it up, make it look a little bit nicer. Again, you can totally skip this part, but I also find it helps with like the rounding. Your work's gonna want to like curl in, so I find that it helps with the curl a little bit, but definitely seam blocking your work is going to help with that curl. And I forgot to mention in the materials you'll need, you're also going to need a hook and eye latch fasteners. I got mine on Amazon. I have them linked down below for you guys and on my storefront. They're really easy to sew on. I did it at the very edge of the where the neckline corner is, and then I spaced this one on this cardigan about 1 inch from each other. On my fall colored cardigan, I placed them about 1.5 inches, 2 inches apart from one another, but you can really space them however you want. After that, you're done. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, you can leave me a comment here or shoot me a message on Instagram or TikTok, and I'll help where I can. Thanks.